Customs and Border Protection, CBP, estimates the cost to build a mile of border wall at about $6.5 million. Yet today, the administration's figures are closer to $12 million per mile. That means for 1,000 miles, the cost would be roughly $12 billion, not the $46 billion they're requesting. Where's the rest of the $46 billion going? The administration claims it needs $46 billion for the wall, but you could actually pave the entire length with that amount and still have about $30 to $34 billion left over. What exactly is that money being spent on? Recent hearings on the Department of Homeland Security's budget request, which totals a staggering $46 billion, have revealed troubling concerns about government spending and oversight. Lawmakers pressed officials to explain why so much funding is allocated to surveillance and other projects that seem to prioritize show over substance. The border wall has become a symbol of wasteful spending, corporate profiteering, and the erosion of civil liberties. Behind the scenes, decisions are being made with little transparency and minimal accountability. This budget discussion is not just about numbers. It raises fundamental questions about democracy and oversight. If this is what the administration is willing to reveal, what else might be hidden deep within the bureaucracy? The call for reform has never been louder. To break down the facts, the U.S.-Mexico border is about 1,950 miles long. About 700 miles are already fenced or walled, mostly with steel barriers, while the rest is either temporary fencing or left unfenced due to difficult terrain like mountains or rivers. Realistically, only about 1,000 miles remain where a wall could feasibly be built. Even at $12 million per mile, building 1,000 miles of wall should cost around $12 billion. So why is the request for $46 billion? Officials responded that the budget includes not only construction, but also related infrastructure and operational costs. However, many remain unconvinced. They want detailed breakdowns showing exactly where the remaining billions will be spent, not just vague explanations about things costing a lot. Beyond the wall, questions also arose about government resources being used to provide security for major events like the NFL and FIFA World Cup. The NFL, for example, makes billions in profits, yet taxpayers shoulder the cost of security without reimbursement from the league. It was argued that these wealthy, for-profit organizations should pay for the government services they receive, rather than leaving average taxpayers to foot the bill. Proposals to require payment for government-provided security at such events are being considered. Concerns also came up regarding civil liberties, including surveillance practices involving public figures. The case of former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard being monitored sparked outrage, as did reports of overzealous security protocols. Lawmakers called for full investigations, transparency, and repercussions for abuses. Significant reforms are needed to ensure government actions respect citizens' rights. In summary, what we heard today was less a budget update and more a wake-up call about waste, abuse, and unchecked power. With a 1,900-mile border, 700 miles already walled, and vast terrain that cannot be fenced, the numbers just don't add up. Even doubling the per-mile cost estimate to $12 million leaves serious questions about how $46 billion is justified. More details and accountability are desperately needed. The estimated cost to build the border wall stood at about $12 billion total. Yet, the administration asked Congress for $46 billion. Senator Rand Paul immediately spotlighted this huge discrepancy. Where was the other $34 billion going? What followed were vague references to contracts, infrastructure, and various processes, none of which clearly explained how tens of billions had seemingly disappeared into the bureaucracy's black hole. For everyday Americans, it felt like watching someone justify putting a sports card charge on your credit card simply because things are expensive. But the missing billions weren't the most shocking revelation. Buried, Deep in the details was something most Americans likely never imagined. The Department of Homeland Security doesn't just spend money on walls, drones, and border checkpoints. It also provides federal security support to billion-dollar sports leagues, the NFL, FIFA, and the World Cup, events that rake in billions from broadcasting rights, corporate sponsorships, and ticket sales no average family can afford. Meanwhile, taxpayers quietly foot the bill for the federal security these leagues receive. Think about that. Families struggling to pay rent who could never dream of a Super Bowl ticket are subsidizing the safety of billionaires. Rand Paul didn't hold back. Why? He asked. Should a nation drowning in $2 trillion of debt bankroll corporate giants that can easily pay for their own security? If the NFL or FIFA want federal resources, they should pay for them. DHS admitted almost casually that these leagues do not reimburse the public. Profits are privatized, while costs are socialized. For many watching, this was the moment the hearing truly came into focus. Who hasn't felt the sting of unfairness when the wealthy skate free and ordinary families foot the bill? Yet, unbelievably, the financial waste wasn't the whole story. The hearing took a darker turn, shifting from money to surveillance, specifically the TSA's Quiet Skies program. Reports revealed this shadowy initiative had been used to track former Congresswoman and presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard. Imagine boarding a plane only to find out an armed federal air marshal was ordered to follow you, not because of any credible threat or intelligence, but because of an opaque bureaucratic program no one can clearly explain. If the government can do that to a former member of Congress, what does that say about the rest of us? The implications are staggering. Air travel isn't just stressful. It risks becoming a stage for secret surveillance without transparency or accountability. And the revelations didn't stop there. Another story surfaced that was chilling. An air marshal's wife was allegedly targeted simply because she might have had ties to the January 6th events. The very officers sworn to protect passengers were redirected to monitor the families of their colleagues, not for crimes but for possible political associations. Rand Paul erupted at this absurdity. He demanded to know who authorized this, if anyone had been fired, and why surveillance powers designed to protect against terrorism were being used as political tools. If federal marshals are following people based on politics rather than threats, the system isn't just broken, it's inverted. Instead of protecting Americans, it risks intimidating them. Pressed on these issues, DHS didn't deny the reports outright. Instead, they promised reforms, oversight reviews, and perhaps future legislation. But for those watching, the damage was done. A disturbing pattern emerged. DHS couldn't justify billions in its budget, couldn't explain why billion-dollar corporations get taxpayer-funded perks, and couldn't assure the public surveillance programs weren't abused. Every answer boiled down to the same bureaucratic refrain. We'll get you the specifics later. We'll come back with details. How many times have Americans heard that, only to see nothing change? Rand Paul's questioning struck a chord far beyond partisan politics. At its core, this was about accountability. Whether government officials can honestly explain what they're doing with the money and power entrusted to them. On this day, the answer was no. By the hearing's end, 3 clear lessons emerged. Lessons every American should care about. Regardless of politics, government waste, billions vanishing into budgets that don't add up, corporate freeloading, leagues like the NFL and FIFA enjoying taxpayer support while hoarding profits, civil liberties under threat, secret surveillance programs creeping into daily life without oversight, transparency, or justification. These are not niche concerns. They affect everyone. The taxpayer writing checks every April, the traveler boarding a plane, the citizen who expects fairness under the law. The hearing made one thing impossible to ignore. Blank checks lead to abuse. Billion-dollar corporations will freeload as long as they can. Surveillance programs will quietly expand until someone stops them. Rand Paul's grilling wasn't perfect, but it pulled back the curtain. Behind it wasn't accountability, but a system powered by excuses, vagueness, and avoidance. So here's the lingering question. How much longer will Americans tolerate this? How much longer will taxpayers subsidize billionaires? How much longer will surveillance powers grow unchecked? How many times will we hear promises of details later that never come? These aren't abstract debates. They affect where your money goes, how your freedoms are treated, and whether your government still answers to you. If you're tired of blank checks written with your money, if you believe billionaires should pay for their own luxuries, if you don't want secret surveillance creeping into your life, the message is clear. Speak up. Stay engaged. Demand better, because accountability isn't guaranteed. It only exists if citizens refuse to let it slip away. What do you think? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. We've got more to uncover.